Hold on. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our today webinar. Today we are going to talk about how to play against bishop pair. So remember, maybe 3 weeks ago, we organized a webinar that was devoted of how to exploit the advantage of a bishop pair. Okay, please let me know if the sound is okay and you can see me and of course the screen. And on the screen, I'm sharing our educational group on chess.com. It's Tricks of Chess. So this is the link for you to join. Let me also publish it here in the chat. So the link to join on chess.com. Okay, perfect. What else do I want to tell you? So this is my profile on chess.com. So you can follow me or send me friend requests. And you will also, you can follow me when I play games on chess.com because I usually play on chess.com instead of Lichess. And what else? Okay, one more thing. If you want to support our webinars, you may donate them here on patreon.com/tricks of chess. This is the link. So it's actually easy. Here you load this page, then you click become a patron. Of course, then you have to register and you can donate with PayPal or your credit card. So webinars are free, but if you have some money and you want me to continue webinars and you want them to be regularly, so every week, for example, then if you support me, I will be really I will do my best to conduct and to create the best content for these webinars. Okay, fine. So this is what I want to announce. Let's close it because today we will talk about chess. Okay, and one more thing you should remember. Just wait a second. Let me tell you. So I also have a YouTube channel, and some of almost all the webinars I conduct will be uploaded there. Of course, it's better to participate the event when it's live. Suggest the lines, no, some ideas, plans, and ask questions. But you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me there, because you see, if you miss some webinars, you can find them here. So for example, I have a playlist that is devoted to webinars. Let me find it. Oh, here it is, playlists. And here, webinars, there are also some other playlists, like about World Chess Championship, when Magnus Carlsen played against Fabiano Caruana. Some openings, some study-like combinations, actually very interesting analysis, and how I'm playing Blitz with real people. Okay, fine. Let's close it. Oh. Okay, so okay, perfect. So today we are going to talk about how to play with bishops, with knights against a bishop pair. What do you think? What's the best way? What should we do? Oh, you can look at this position and tell me how to play here for black, just some general aspects of black play that black should follow to be able to get a better knights than these two bishops. So how to make these knights better than bishops? What do you think? What are general rules that you can follow to be able to stop his bishop's activity? Okay, close the position. Of course, yes, it's obvious. Fix the pawns to keep diagonal closed. Yes, it's even better. So not only to close the position, but to close the diagonals for that bishops. Black should restrict the activity of one color bishop. Actually, black should restrict the activity of both bishops if possible, of course. And f5 here, of course, makes sense. It's not the best move right now, but yes, f5 makes sense. No, f6 doesn't actually. F5. Okay, I got you. So you just... okay, you wanted to say f5. Okay, c5. c5 with the idea to do what? Yeah, right. c5, c4. So here f5 makes sense. c5, c4 too, because all this activity restricts his pieces. So bishops are really active when they have open diagonals. That's why the main method to play against the bishop pair is their restriction. So the task is to restrict the diagonals, to close them, to make the bishop stuck on their positions. How do we restrict the bishops? We can do it with our pawns. So, for example, f5 and c5, c4, like you said. And the other thing that we should also do is we should create a support square for our knights. So what is a support square? Or it can be called as a support point or even a strong point. What does it mean? It's a kind of a square that we can occupy with our knight and make our knight more active. So for example, if it's an open diagonal or if it's an open file, then the outpost can be such a square. So like let's say, for example, the c file is open, but we have a pawn on d5. Then the c4 square might work as the outpost, and it's good to locate our knight on this position, even if he takes it with his bishop. So yes, of course, outposts are strong points too, but in this position there are no outposts, because all the files are closed or semi-closed. No, like there are two semi-closed files, so the B and G files. However, it's difficult to get an outpost square for the knights here on these files. So no outposts, but there can be strong points, like, for example, d5 or e4 at some point after f5. Maybe something else. Okay, we'll see. Actually, this exact position, if here it's white to move, is in white favor. And if white wants to exploit his bishop pair, he should play c4. However, at that moment, he didn't realize it. And this is actually the game between Emanuel Lasker and Mikhail Chigorin. So you know that Lasker was a champion, actually, but he lost that game to Chigorin. And maybe because of some misunderstanding of the position. He played rook g3, c5. Okay, you also asked me, but what if white takes on c5? That's true, but d takes on c5 doesn't really provide white with any advantage. It's even in black favor. For example, what then? Rook c5. Then, for example, c4 to activate the bishop, but knight c6. So then we double try to attack the c4 pawn, which is now the object of the attack. Yes, of course he can play bishop c3, but what then? He can't really play with this bishop neither to d4 nor to b4. So yes, you're absolutely right. This move only d takes on c5 only makes the c4 pawn an isolated pawn and potentially the object of the attack. So it's not so good. Rook a g1 was played, c4, bishop c2, and then f5. So we got some benefits. At least we restricted the light squared bishop. Oh, of course, the dark squared bishop is restricted by his own pawns here. And we got some good points for our knights, d5 and e4. So these points can be considered as strong points. I'm not sure about e4 because he can play f3 to attack our knight, but I'm definitely sure about d5 square. d5 is a strong point because in case of e4, f4 it can be hanging. However, he doubled the rooks on the g file, and we should make a defensive move. Rook f7. Yes, it's white to move. He plays bishop c1 and then rook f7. Right. Bishop a3 to activate the bishop. Rook c6. I hope you understand the idea of this move. So rook a6, and we want to gain a pawn on a2. That's why bishop c5. The pawn on a7 is it's hanging. The pawn on a7 is hanging. So what to do? Rook a6 or a6. What do you think? So this or that move, which to play? Rook a6. Okay, yeah, looks like everyone thinks that rook a6. Yes, because if you play a6, bishop a4, b5, bishop c2, then we can't activate our rook while he gets a counterplay. He can play a4 and at least open the a file, which is of course in his favor. So rook a6, a4, knight c6, rook b1. Then I saw you suggested to play knight e7, knight g7, I believe, or knight c e7. Which of them to e7? What do you think? Knight captures pawn? What do you mean? Which pawn to capture? On f4? But what for? Yeah, if this knight to e7, then the b7 pawn is hanging. That's true. Knight a5. Okay, knight a5 makes sense, but no, I can't say it makes sense, but what's the idea? Just to protect on b7? If so, then yes, it's a possible move. However, I believe Black played a better option. He played rook d7. Why? Because he wants to play knight e7. Rook g1, then knight g e7. So now the rook is not on f7. The b7 pawn is protected. And knight goes to d5. Rook b2, knight d5. I'm not sure about b6 in this position. So here b6. Why? Because it makes our rook a bad piece. So for example, b6 now. Then what? If bishop a3, then of course. Oh, actually, bishop a3 can be even played because b5 cannot be played. Rook b5. But now we are playing without a rook, so he can even take knight takes and what? The rook is on a6 or a5, so it's not so good. Okay. So what then? He played rook b2. Okay, rook b2. No, yes, here it's shown that b6 traps our own rook. Knight d5. King d2 to protect on c3. Rook a5. Okay, so he doubles. Now this pawn is hanging, and then b6. Okay, why rook a5? But what to do? Of course, a6 was a temporary square for this rook, and yes, we keep in mind the idea to play b6. But our rook should be more active, so b6 now. Bishop comes to a3. This is the only square. Of course, if for example he goes to b4, then what do you think we should do? So, okay, knight d4 with the idea to get some room for our rook. Makes sense, but you also, I see that Theodore suggested knight c before, and this I think is much better. Why? Because if this move, then c3 with a check. King d3, c takes b2. Then what? B takes a5. Here, what? To take the pawn or... Yeah, let's take. He takes here, then knight b4. I think it's about equal. This position is equal. Okay, so if bishop b4, then we take and equalize the position. So bishop b4, knight c b4, rook b4. If so, then we take again, and yes, here we get some room for our rook, and we are able to escape. Here, black is better, of course. Okay, but he plays bishop a3. White is also playing for a victory. He doesn't want to draw. g6. So what do you think? What's the idea of g6 move? Oh, actually, it's a kind of a waiting move, and maybe to get the king closer to the center, maybe just to understand what white wants to do. So he plays rook b5, which is not a good move at all. So rook b5, and then we can just take this rook. So, okay, this is move number 14. So it's a kind of a tempo loss. We can take it and then get our knight to a5, but black decides not to trade. So I think a better option here was to play king f7, but instead he just plays rook a6 to keep more pieces on the board. Yeah, if king e7, if king f7, then he takes the knight a5. This is what I thought. Okay, rook a6, bishop c1. And now that's the question: what to do with this knight on c6? Looks like this knight on d5 is in a good spot. If e4, then knight f4. So it's a really strong point for the knight. But how to deal with the other knight? Where to move it? Do you think to a5? But what does this knight do on a5? Where it should be. So try to think how to relocate this knight. It's a very common plan, actually. When we don't know what to do, what plan to apply, then we should find our worst piece and think about how to improve it. So you think 97, and what then? Get knight to g6 or what? So yes, okay, to g6, that's true. 98, no, okay, so knight e7 and knight c8, so yeah, you can do this at knight d6, but instead black plays knight d8 with the idea to play knight f7 and knight d6. I think these two routes are approximately equal. I mean, it doesn't really make much difference. But knight d8, maybe because knight comes to f7, not c8, where on f7 it can also play g5 at some point. But yeah, the general idea is just to get to d6. Rook a1, knight f7, rook b1 to go back, because then knight d6 is played with a temper. Knight d6 now. f3, with the idea to support the square, so knight can't go to e4 anymore. Knight goes to f7 back. Can you explain why? Why did he went to f7? What does he want to do? To play g5, true. He wants to play g5. Maybe it's not the best move, but this is his plan. So rook a3 to be able to play king e2 and then e4. So king e2 to open the bishop and protect the pawn on f4. And this is where he plays g5. Maybe not the best option, but it's difficult to find what to do. What can I suggest? Instead of g5, maybe just rook a5 first. Yeah, rook a5 to prepare, because if we move this knight, well, let's say if rook a5 here instead of g5, he plays e4, then we should take, he takes, and then we escape somehow with our knight and get and can get our rook to h5 at some point. Maybe this can be a good idea, but of course I understand that he may play e5. But if so, then we have good spots for our knights. So I can show you rook a5, e4. Oh, wait, e4 right now, knight f4. So king e2 first. Say knight f6. If he does this move, then we take, and then we can relocate our rook. Of course, the pawn is lost now, but if he plays at some point e5, we can also get two strong points for our knight. D5 and F5. So here black is better, and not only because of the weak pawn on H2 that can be taken. Okay, so anyway, he didn't play rook E5 to prepare for E4. He played G5 immediately. He was hoping for F takes G5, knight takes G5, King E2, and the rook G7. If E4 now, then of course we can play knight A7, but knight H3. And then if he takes rook G2, winning the bishop. King D1, for example. And then just repeat the position and claim draw. Or if he moves to F1, let's say. We can also repeat the position. True. Okay, what can he do? E3. Yeah, he can move to E3. And if so, what can we do? What do you think? Oh, F4 doesn't work because king escapes to E4. Okay. Actually, F4 works. King escapes to E4, but rook E2. And that's a checkmate. Okay, so looks like king E3 is a wrong move. Okay, so here black wanted to make a draw after knight H3. That's why he played G5. However, white played just king E2. G takes F4 with the idea to relocate the knight to be able to attack on F4. But so that's why he didn't take. However, he plays E4 in this position. Knight F6. Maybe it was better to take first and then to play knight F6. Bishop F4, knight H5, attacking this knight, bishop E3, F4. So again, we want to restrict this bishop activity. Then I think E5 could make sense. But E5, D5, and the rook is trapped. This is the problem. Bishop F2. Rook A5 first to be able to move the rook to G5 and then play E5 so that we can limit this bishop as well. And in this position, actually, the best option for white was to play E5. So keep the rook on the queen side and be able to open the bishop. However, he did the check. King F8. Rook A1. So if here he plays E5, then B5, bishop H7, knight E5, the bishop is hanging. Rook G8, check, the bishop is not hanging, and then he may take on E5, but if so, it's white is not losing. Oh, I mean black is not losing because of B4. He takes and rook E5 check. Knight F6 double attack. And this is how black could equalize in such a case. So E5 should be played earlier after rook A5. That was a better option. Okay, fine. No, why? Okay, let me just explain it because maybe it's not obvious. Rook A5 and E5 should be played here. Why? Because now B5 cannot be played because the rook is still there to control the square. Okay, let's now show what happened in the game. Rook A1 and then E5 ourselves. Rook B1, knight to G7 to protect the pawn with our rook. And then knight just comes to E6. Why? Well, here the answer is obvious. We want to take and promote. Or at least try to promote. Rook D1. Should we take on D4 right now? What do you think? What do you think if this move works? Bishop D4, knight D4, rook D4. In whose favor it is? You get isolated pawn. Which pawn is isolated? What do you mean? What do you mean? Yeah, e takes d4. So if bishop d4, knight takes d4, and the rook d4, I think black is fine because black can just relocate his rook and take on h2. And then it's black who is playing for victory, especially keeping in mind a bad position of this bishop on b1. But if he takes the pawn, then c3 is not really a strong move because here he has a strong pawn center, and this passed pawn can be easily blocked with the bishop. And two knights are restricted with these two pawns. So white is better in this position. Okay, let's go back. He plays, no, here he plays knight e d8 actually. Rook d2. Oh, for example, d takes e5 isn't a good move. If so, then knight c6, attacking the rook. Of course, in this position, e6 can be played knight b4, c takes b4, rook a4, then e takes f7 and rook b4. As for this position, I would say it's unclear, and maybe black have more chances to make a draw rather than white to win. However, it can be dangerous if only we imagine the pawns on the fourth rank. So white has to play properly here. Okay, let's go back. So d takes e5 was too risky for white, and he played instead rook d2, knight c6, rook b5, rook takes on a4, d takes e5, knight from f7 takes on e5, bishop h4 to get some activity. Yes, here black got extra pawn, but white activated his bishop. How would you continue? What do you think? Yeah, this position get more open, and but you see only this bishop is active. This one is quite passive, and two knights are in the center. One protect the other one, so that's why they can't be taken with white pieces. So what do you mean? Who can exchange? Do you think white should trade the rooks on the second rank? But okay, maybe. But how to win? Black is one pawn up, and if black trades the rooks, then maybe he can start pushing the pawns on the queen side. So now it doesn't make sense to restrict a dark squared bishop because we have no means for that. Knight g6, rook d7. No, rook g7 was played in this position to activate the rook. King f2. Then, yeah, this is how he stops us from moving to g2. Rook g6. Now there are no squares for his rook to penetrate. That was the idea of rook g7 and rook g6 maneuver. However, he plays rook d5 because now our knight is hanging. So rook a1. If now he takes on a5, we take with our knight. He takes with the other rook, but his bishop is hanging on b1. Bishop d8. Knight d3 check. Bishop takes d3. C takes d3, rook takes d3. And then how to play? What do you think? Okay. Rook ag1. Don't take dark square bishop. True. Don't take this bishop. Play rook ag1. Not gg1 because we are threatening with a checkmate. And there is not much that he can do. However, he plays this move, rook f5. But king e8. And if he takes on f4, he loses his bishop on d8. If bishop g5, then we just take with the rook and it's a winning position with extra knight. This is where white resigned, actually. So, of course, both sides were making mistakes. And originally, white's position was better. And if white tries to open the diagonals for his bishop, he could may win the game, or maybe could play for a victory. But unfortunately for white, he for some reason chose a bad plan with the idea to double here and allowed black to restrict white bishops. Then white occupied the strong points with his knights and tried to activate the rooks. And after that, he found a kind of a counterplay, like g5. Of course, that was not the best move due to some mistakes in calculation, but at least that was a plan for black to play. The position is too complicated, and even a grandmaster can make such a move like g5. And yeah, so the position requires so many calculations. So maybe some strong grandmasters would play rook a5, but I'm not sure. G5 is a logical continuation, and if you are a master, then you can definitely play this move. It's a logical idea to activate the knight to get some activity with your rook from g7 when you move it to g7, while his pieces are stuck on the queen side. Okay, fine. So let's close it. And open a new fragment. So we are going to continue with another game fragment. This is a game fragment from the game between Mikhail Tal and Mikhail Botvinnik. Okay, what else? I mean, in what other cases two knights can be better than two bishops? What do you think? Okay, so yeah, this is what I meant by saying strong points. When they have good outpost. Okay. Okay, Michael, I actually don't understand what you want to say. So maybe when when there are more pieces on the board. This is what you suggest. Okay, got it. One of the bishops is bad. Okay. Okay, Michael, you are close to the correct answer. So another case when knights can be better than bishops is when the position is full of tactics. And of course, you can understand it because it's much easier to blunder a fork rather than a bishop attack. So when the position is full of tactics, knight can make more combinations than a bishop. Like, for example, this position, which is not actually a fully tactical position, but contains some tactical motives. Okay, actually, I didn't ask in the very beginning of this webinar, but maybe if any of you want to say something with voice or suggest lines with voice, I can enable microphones for you. So for 5 people who are using laptops and computers, so unfortunately it won't work for mobile devices. But I see that almost everyone except Vladimir is using a laptop. Yeah, so in sharp positions, yeah, knight can be better than bishop. 2 knights can be better than a bishop pair in sharp positions. Yes, and knight plus queen can make a lot of different attack combinations. That's true. This is what I said. No, if you attended, this is what I said 2 webinars ago, or maybe 3 webinars ago. Don't remember exactly. Okay, so let's continue. So this is the game between Tal and Botvinnik. It's white to move. White has 2 knights. White controls the center. This bishop is really bad, the one on d7. The bishop on f8 is a good bishop generally, but you can also notice a bad pawn structure, h7, h6, what means that probably this bishop has to stay somewhere here to be able to protect this weak pawn. And that's why white is better. However, how to play? This is the question. What would you do if you were white in this position? And yes, this position came from French defense. So bishop took on h6. There was a knight on h6, so a dark squared bishop took this knight to double the pawns. This is one of the typical ideas, and actually it's considered to be in white favor. And I think it's an advanced variation of French, or maybe not. Okay. First problem is f7 pawn. I don't think f7 is a big problem. The king is there. It's not easy to find how to attack this pawn. The c2. Yes, true. The c2 pawn is hanging. So how to play? If knight b3 to gain a tempo, to get the knight on to d4, then queen c2, you will be a pawn down. c3 first. C3 makes sense. C3 gives us the outpost on d4. That's a possible move, but not the best one. Knight d4. Knight d4 looks good, but okay, I don't really like this move right now because of actually, okay, knight d4 is a good move because of what? Who knows? Okay, as for castle long, I think it's too early. But knight d4 doesn't work because of h5. The queen has to be on the 4th rank to be able to protect the knight. And if, for example, knight b3... knight b3 is a bad idea because white loses his knight for the queen. So here, let's say what? This move. If so, then I think something like that. Rook g8 attacking on g2 with the intention to get to g4. That's definitely not in our favor. If queen goes to h4, then bishop e7, of course, and queen f4, and still rook g8 now. So no, knight d4 is too early to play. The best move here is c4. looks like a mistake actually, because we shouldn't open the position, but this move contains a tactical solution. So for example, if d takes c4, which is a logical idea if black wants to activate his light squared bishop, then castle, bishop c6, rook a c1, b5, knight e4, and when we get to f6, the game is almost over, regardless of a pawn sacrifice. That's why he has to take, queen takes, and his position is too exposed, and of course he loses the pawn on c4. Rook d8, rook d1. And this is where we are better. What else can he do? Queen d5? Maybe, but it's not so strong. Then at least queen g4 maybe. And then rook comes to d1. Okay, fine. So d takes on c4. After this move, white has lead in development and can attack pieces occupying good squares with his knight and also activating his rooks. That's why he didn't take, but he castled queenside. Castle kingside. So yeah, looks it's too risky to castle to the king side because of the g file open, but the queen is there and the queen controls the g file. King b8. And now it makes sense to start the attack on the queen side, but at the same time we should control the center. Rook fd1. If he takes, we take with the knight and occupy the d6 square if needed. Queen b6. Attacking this pawn. Maybe bishop e7 was a better option, because after queen b6, the pawn actually in b2 is not hanging, but we may play queen h4, and now he can play bishop e7. We also stop any bishop activity. If he moves the bishop, then he loses on h6. The only exclusion is bishop c5 when he attacks on f2, and we can't take on h6 because he takes on f2. So here we take on d5 and then play knight b3. Then we may trade and take on h6, or at least occupy the d4 square, or take here. I don't know what is better. I think to take on d5 is better than anything else. Black can play bishop g7. That's a good comment, but what does this bishop do on g7? Nothing. It's even a mistake. C takes d5, e takes d5, and what white can do in this position to be able to gain the material? What do you think? Can you find it? Queen g3, e6? I think e6 first. e6, and then queen g3. e6 he takes, and then queen g3 is a check, and we also attack here. And even if he takes here with the queen, queen g3 is still a good move, because then bishop e5 cannot be played. We have a knight on f3. So bishop g7 is a concrete mistake. Moreover, the bishop has nothing to do on that diagonal. a5 to stop b4 activity. Rook ac1, rook g8. No, queen b2 isn't good in this position because d8 is hanging here. So rook g8 was played, knight b3, and then a4 to threaten the knight. But c5, queen c7, and then we have to move the knight. So who knows? What if here he takes? how to exploit this pin. What do you think? B4. B4, and what if he takes en passant? Knight takes b3. Okay, I see. Anusha, I think you are mistaken. b4 is a good move, of course, but if here you take with the pawn, then at least he can play queen a5 or queen b6. And b4 is not a good move in this position. Knight should take here. If knight takes, then it's fine. So b6, but a4 with a5 idea. If queen a7, then a5 anyway. And we can gain the pawn back. We can take on h6 actually. But the main idea is to expose the king by playing a5. So bishop c5 is too risky. Rook c8 then. b4 anyway. En passant. A takes b3. Now bishop c5 won't work at all because b4 immediately. Queen d8, he offers a trade. Should we trade the queens or not? What do you think? No? Okay. Any other suggestions? Better keep it to attack. No, I would agree with you. But how to play? Is there a concrete move that helps us to keep the queen? Queen f4 or what? Queen h5? Okay, actually, here we should trade the queens because if we play another move like queen f4, then bishop c5. Queen f7, queen e7. And it opens the position, at least his dark squared bishop is open. So you see, we don't really get we don't get the advantage because we allow him to play with his dark squared bishop. It's much better to trade the queens and then play b4. This is how we restrict this bishop, while this one is already restricted. And here we keep in mind the idea to play b5, c6. For example, in the game it was rook g4, b5. So both bishops are bad. Rook c8, c6 anyway. Bishop e8. Rook c2, with the idea to play to double on the c file or to double on the a file. Play b6 and deliver a checkmate. So bishop g7, rook a1, bishop a5. Oh, here the idea is obvious. He gains a pawn, but it doesn't save his position at all. How to continue? What do you think? White is absolutely winning, but here we should be looking for a tactical solution. b6 or what? b6. Okay, I see. So b6, what can he do? Actually, he can capture with the pawn. How to deal with it? Because then there is no checkmate. If now rook a2, then king b7 is enough. And if rook a7, king b6. Okay, c7, rook c7, and then rook c8 too. Yes, that makes sense. because if then we are threatening with a checkmate, so he moves the rook probably to c5, then we check him, king c7, and we take this bishop. It's a winning position. All right, that makes sense. However, there was a much better move. It was knight d7. What's the idea of this move? So here he has two options, to move the king or to take on d7. So let's analyze king c7, because bishop d7 was played in the game. So b6 then. King d6 or king d8. Doesn't really matter, but king d8 is better. Not much, but then c takes b7 and b8 on the next move. He can take the rook, but b8 queen, and we win. He can take the knight, but then we take his rook and promote a pawn to a queen. Okay, so here knight d7. Okay, once again c7 here, then rook c a2, then rook c5, b6. No, it's not. It's not a checkmate, because in this position he can play rook e4, and because of the weakness of the back rank, you can't really take here. You take, bishop takes, and the other rook can't take. So there will be no checkmate. Okay, so knight d7 is the best option. Bishop d7. C takes on d7, the rook is hanging. If it takes, then we promote. So the only logical move is to play this move. How to continue? What's the idea? What do you think? Rook a8, and what then? Rook a8, king a8. Okay. Okay, I see. So rook a8 or rook c8. So if you play rook a8, king takes, rook c8, then he plays king a7. And unfortunately, you can't take here because black is threatening with a checkmate. If you play rook c8 first, then it works. Check, he has to take. Otherwise, he loses the rook. Then rook a8, check. If king moves to c7, then d takes c8 equals queen check. He takes here, check. King a7, queen c5, the game is over. So rook c8 works. However, in this game, it was played b6, another strong move. Rook b4, and just check, and rook c8. Now it works. So this is where black lost. Okay, fine. There was a question by Michael. King c7. No, not in this position. c7, rook c7. Rook goes here. Rook c5, b6, rook a4. No, it's not a fork because bishop takes. There is no pin. The bishop can take on d7. Okay, so let's sum it up. So two knights can be better than a bishop pair in the position, in a sharp position that is full of tactical solutions. Like here, for example, such move like c4, which is strategically a bad idea because it opens his light squared bishop. Here really makes sense because d takes on c4 leads to a better development for white, and he can exploit it and activate his pieces. And if black doesn't take, then it c takes d5 make a weakness on d5. But actually, here white can play c5 and restrict a dark squared bishop, what is more important. So finally, we had to trade the queens. We were attacking, but we had to trade the queens, while our task, our main idea was to stop his bishops, to restrict them. And then we got a counterplay on the queen side, with some mating ideas, of course. This is why we won the game. Okay, fine. The last game fragment to analyze today is the game between Vasily Smyslov and Boris Spassky. Okay, so you know that Vasily Smyslov's wife didn't know how to play chess, but she could always evaluate the position properly when her husband was playing. Do you know how? Okay, by looking at the face of your husband, not on his face, but on his ears. So ears. So when they get red, then he was in trouble. His position was really bad when or when only his ears got red. Okay, I'm not sure what happened in this position, but I believe here because Black won that game. Actually, I believe here Vasily Smyslov's ears were really red. So Black to move. How would you play? White has a bishop pair, but we have a bishop too. However, the position is open. What should we do to restrict his bishops, or at least to get some tactical solutions here to be able to gain a pawn or just improve our knights or just improve our position in general? As for now, the position looks equal actually. If you were black, how would you play? E3. Okay, Theodore suggests e3, and that makes sense. E3, what can he do? So if f takes a3, then what to do? What do you think? Trade the queens or take with the knight immediately? No, I don't know. Let's take the queen, I think. Then rook fd1 and bishop h6 with a counterplay against this rook. What can he do in this position? No, I don't like bishop c5 move here. So bishop c5, for example, which looks natural. Then knight a3, knight a3, rook e3, bishop a3 actually. Bishop takes, rook takes. This pawn is hanging, and this pawn structure is in black favor. However, I believe black advantage is not enough to be able to win this game. If not bishop c5, what else can he play? Maybe bishop c6 or something like that. Then rook ec8, and then we take on e3. So anyway, this is how we can activate the bishop, by just sacrificing the pawn. That's why f3 here. Knight f2. Here, of course, he may take our queen, but he didn't. He decided to capture the pawn on a4, at least to get one extra pawn. If he takes the queen, then rook b takes here, then bishop c5 with the idea to attack on a3. However, knight d5, knight f3, knight takes a3, bishop f3, and then we play knight d3 move. This is a double attack. His bishop is hanging and his rook. If he takes, then rook e3, and we are able to gain this pawn back. At the same time, here it's definitely a draw because of bishops of opposite color. So you see, if queen takes on d8, then it could be a draw. However, he plays queen a4, and it's not better than queen takes d8. Knight d5 to get to c3 and then capture on e2. f4, knight c3, queen c2. How would you play now? What would you do? Queen d4. Okay, Anusha is correct, and this is what Vasily Smyslov, or this is what Boris Spassky played in the game. However, it's not the best move. Queen d4 is not the best option. Rook f1. Rook f1, you mean, okay. Okay, just remind me to add coordinates. You mean rook c8? No, I don't know. Rook c8, he may take on a3, I think. Yeah. Bishop d4. Queen d2. What's the idea? If knight takes on d2, then knight e2 is a checkmate. Nice checkmate. If he takes here with the queen, then e takes d2, this rook is hanging. And if knight takes d2, then knight g4. Threatening with several threats. Knight e2, bishop d4, or rook e2. I think it's enough. Here black is better. However, queen d4 was played in the game. Queen d4, knight e5. Because if knight b2, then we may take on e2. Queen takes on e2. Rook b2, bishop b2, queen b2. And in this position, even... Oh, actually, rook c2, and here he is fine. If we play e2, then just rook e1. Looks like white is better. After this move, then queen d2 can be played, actually. Right. This is much better. Okay, so then he plays knight e5. Bishop takes, then pawn takes, rook e8 to protect the knight that was hanging. Bishop f3. And who knows if this move, then what? How to play. This is how he creates a pin and wants to take on c3 on the next move. What do you think we should do? Knight e2? No, I don't think so. If we play knight e2, then queen takes e2. Then if rook takes b2, rook c8. Like king g7, rook d8. So if black takes white queen, then white takes black queen. No, it doesn't work. So bishop b2, what else can you suggest? Queen c4, queen b4. But then he takes on c3. No, it won't work. Okay, so just queen d2 is enough. Oh, sorry, not queen d2, but first take here and then queen d2. That's much better. So we are threatening with knight e2, and the best thing he can do is actually to take on c3. Then queen takes queen, and in this position, after queen a2, we can at least draw the game, but maybe because of his king weakness on g1, we are slightly better. So bishop f3 was played in the game, queen d2, king g2, queen d7 to get the queen to h3, bishop d6, knight ce4, attacking the queen. What do you think? What now white should do in this position? How to play? The queen is hanging. What can he do? Move the queen, but where to? Looks like the queen is trapped. Bishop b8. So you think to play with two rooks, then queen h3, king g1, d2. Yeah, maybe. But of course, here black is better. However, in this position, after knight c4, white plays this move. Why queen d6 doesn't work here? If we play queen d6, what can happen? So queen a4. So the queen escapes, you mean? But no. Bishop d6. If we take the bishop, he sacrifices a pawn for nothing if only he makes a passive move like queen a4. Queen c8. Yeah, queen d6, queen c8, rook c8, rook c8, king g7, e takes f7, he promotes on the next move. That's why we have to take. But if we take, then bishop e4, and this knight is pinned. And white is slightly better because this pawn is still alive. There is a pin on the f file, the f7 pawn died, and the pawn on e3 is a weakness. So here white is better. Not winning, but better. But we can just take on e6, keep the protection of this rook on c8. Bishop b8, rook c2, rook takes c2, and g5. Everything is protected, and our goal is to play g4 to force him to take on e4. King g1. No, you see, if not king g1 or if not a rook move, then g4 he takes, queen a4, and this is a fork. That's why he plays king g1, knight d2. Rook f2 doesn't work because e takes f2 is a move with a check. So here he plays rook fc1, then knight f3, e takes f3, and knight d3, with the idea to promote. Rook c6, queen a2, threatening a checkmate. Queen f2, queen f3 with a strong attack. Maybe not a checkmate, but at least with a strong attack. Check. And you see, there is not much that he can do. We are threatening with e2. Bishop e5 cannot be played. Our knight's position on d3 is ideal here. That's why maybe the only thing he can do is to play this move. But unfortunately, it doesn't work. At least because we can play e2 right now. However, he plays this move first, king g2, and then just knight e1. And then he promotes. Because, oh, actually here, e2 wins immediately, I think. No, queen b1 is better. He moves and then queen f5, for example. If he plays where? Let's say here. Then check, he blocks, and then e2. Nothing can stop this pawn from promotion. Oh, the bishop can actually. But this is a winning position anyway. For example, queen f3, threatening to play queen h5, checkmate. So black is absolutely winning here. Okay, let's go back and try to sum it up. So here the key idea was to play e3, and white could get a draw if only he trades the rooks. So for example, here, he trades the queens, I mean. In this position, he could get a draw. Bishop c5, knight d5, and this is gonna be a draw. However, he played several mistakes. So he decided to play for victory and took on a4, but then knight d5. And black pieces are more reactive than white. So this bishop is a kind of a useless piece, at least for a while the pawn on e2 is the object of the attack. And if only we take it with our knight, it's a checkmate. So this game was full of tactics that could help us to exploit two knights against a bishop pair. So the bishop on g2 wasn't playing, wasn't participating the game fully, and the bishop on a3 just had open diagonal, but didn't do much on that diagonal. And then, of course, with a strong pawn on a3, we keep in mind some ideas of queen d2 with the idea to promote. Of course, white had some ideas that could help him to draw the game, but he didn't use and lost because of some tactical combinations. Okay, fine. So let's repeat what you may learn from this webinar. First, when you're going to play against a bishop pair, you should restrict bishops with your pawns and with his own pawns. Then find strong points with for your knights. It can be outpost or just support squares where you can locate your knight and make them more active comparing to his bishops. And of course, remember that two knights can be better than a bishop pair when the game is full or when the position is full of tactics, because it's it's really easy to blunder a fork, not in one move, but of course in 5-6 moves and or so on. Okay, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them. However, I want to remind you that you can so I think, oh, wait a second. No. Okay, let me double check everything. So yeah, don't hesitate to ask questions. And I also want you to remember that if you want to support our webinars, you can click on this link that I type in the chart and donate. And so here become a patron. Okay, so perfect. If no questions, then thank you for attending. Don't miss my next webinar. That's gonna be next Sunday, I think. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and join our cheers.com group. No, that's all. Thank you. Thank you for coming.